Hey, we're back. Rip City Real Talk. A little late this week, but myself, Anthony Blaylock, and Craig Moshka are back. We had to wait, post it here. It's about Tuesday afternoon. I was in the Green Bay area this last weekend, crossing off a big bucket list of mine, getting to go to Lambeau and watch the Packers smack down the Bears. So we're a little late on the pod this week, but we're excited to be back with you guys. It has been a crazy week. We got plenty of time to touch on it because we only had 3 games to recap. We're a little behind on the games, obviously, but we're excited to break everything down, talk about stuff. Man, it's been a crazy week, huh?
It's been a crazy week. It's been wild. Not been a very winning or productive week from the Blazers, but we're going to cover it anyways because we don't give a damn.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we're not going to be able to talk about our motto anymore. we have to change. We're gonna have to change mottos.
Yep.
500 or better seems like a thing of the past these days, huh?
Unless we're going to play Detroit 3 times a week.
At this point, it wouldn't shock me if even Detroit was able to beat us.
Good
Um,
Lord, man.
but yeah, so we just dive right into it. We start with the
Yep.
Clips. So the Clippers, we lost 102-90. That was a weird game. It was probably not going to happen for us regardless. We were out Dame, no CJ. He was a late scratch with the lung issue. And
Mm-hmm.
then we had no Amp in that one. So the bench was already beat up. But I didn't see too much in this one that really stood out one way or the other. I saw Nurk and Powell both play crazy. They both looked really good, especially Nurk. He, had an opportunity to take control of that game from the Blazers standpoint, and they went
Yeah.
through him, and he did not disappoint us. I don't think he upset us in any way. He had the 5 fouls, which kind of limited some of his playing time, but still good to see him get out there and feel like he was being used and produce.
Yeah, you were at this game. I mean, you got to feel the
Mm-hmm.
energy, and Nurkic was fantastic for most of this game. Yes, he did play emotionally. Yes, he did get aggressive with some fouls, but when you're running the offense through a big guy like that, you're going to expect him to get into foul trouble. I think I was really impressed with the 31 points out of Nurk. He did have some really costly mistakes down at the end of the game, but I mean, we went into this game with no Dame, no Little, no CJ, no Simons. It's like, where do you expect
Mm-hmm.
points to come from? And I feel like Powell and Nurkic stepped up really well in their respective roles.
Absolutely, Powell especially. We talk all the time about trading TJ, obviously, and we're going to get into that in the second half, of course. But the one thing that you do when you trade CJ is you potentially move Powell back to the shooting guard position, a better fit for him, we think. And this is exactly what we expect to get out of Powell when
Look
he's in the
great.
shooting guard role, letting him kind of attack a bit more. He's still going to shoot his threes, but his position allows him to do a little bit more offensively. And we can see he can get 25, 26 points a night easy. That's no different
Hmm.
than what CJ has been giving us over the years. So it was really cool to get to see him get that spotlight moment. CJ's missed some time recently the last couple of years, and this is the first real look we got at Powell kind of taking over that shooting guard position and running the floor out there with no Dame to take away shots. Both him and Nurk had to play big minutes, and they didn't disappoint. I was telling the guy I was at the game with it. We talked about a couple weeks ago. Chicago was my favorite win of the season. This was
Hmm.
probably my favorite loss of the
Yeah.
season. I mean, the guys came out, they looked like they gave a damn. Let's be real. I mean, they were
Hmm.
trying. It was close pretty much all the way to the last couple of minutes. Obviously, the Clippers pulled away a little bit in the end there. A lot of that was just a couple big threes, not even big threes, but a couple threes that they hit kind of in garbage time. Didn't
Hmm.
make too big of a difference. The score was a lot closer than it ended up being. They fought most of that game. And that was exciting considering we only had 4 people on the bench. The guys had to, again, play big minutes. Foul trouble kind of kicked in, especially for Nurk, to hang in there and slow George down and those guys and really keep it a fun game
Yeah.
considering all the injuries.
When you have Tony Snell play 32 minutes, what are you honestly expecting from that game, right? And I'm not trying to knock the guy. It's just literally this team needs our offensive players to play if we're going to score. We only scored 90 points, but we held them to 102. Our defense was pretty formidable. It's just there's not enough firepower out there, and Nurkic and Powell did everything they could. But I mean, Macklemore was decent in this game at times. You didn't see a lot from Larry Nance in 32 minutes. He only had 4 points and 5 rebounds. That was kind of a letdown, honestly.
Yeah, he had that spurt there for that week and a half against, some of those teams, Chicago and a couple of those other games that he played in Toronto when we were cheering his name. And all of a sudden, he's
Hmm.
kind of dipped back down and being a little unproductive in his minutes. I don't know if that's just injuries causing him to play a different role than he's was getting kind of used to,
I
and it's
don't
throwing him
know.
off a bit. But he hasn't looked overwhelmingly good to me, and it's been a little disappointing because
Well,
these are the times when he gets the shine. These are his opportunities.
exactly. And like I kind of alluded to right there. So Tony Snell plays 32 minutes and Ben McLemore played 8. And you needed offense in this game. It feels like Chauncey kind of missed an opportunity to plug McLemore into the lineup to be a
Yeah.
spark plug off the bench. It just, I didn't love some of that coaching. I do feel like the end game, the closers at times over the last week have been kind of an interesting choice by Chauncey. I think that this game especially was like, why wouldn't you play Ben McLemore more or give him more minutes? I mean, it's funny how you play no Dame and CJ and you hold a team this good to 102 points, but I would like to see some more offense out there.
Yeah, you'd think Macklemore, especially the way we just talked about him a week ago, getting more
Mm-hmm.
opportunity with some of the injuries that we've had, especially Dame missing time, and he was lighting up from three.
Mm-hmm.
And he played better, he got more minutes and more run in the Warriors game, but he's gonna have to
Step up.
to be out there when you don't have the 3-point shooting that Dame and
Yep.
CJ give you. Now Dame came back at the end of the week, but this game and then the Warriors game, like we expected to see a bit more Macklemore. He's been toasting it. He's been out here lighting up from three. He doesn't give you much else, and I get that.
Yep.
But at this point, what else were you getting in this game? It's a close game that you need to keep up with a team that can pull away in an instant.
Right.
You need that offense out there, and they just I don't know. Like you said, they just decided not to go with that route. They decided to give it more to Dennis Smith and Rocco and those guys, and
Yep.
this is the result.
And Dennis Smith, I mean, to his credit, he stepped up at times and really looked like the point guard we needed to run the
Yeah.
offense. And I thought that they made great choices running the offense through Nurk. There was nothing that I could get upset about there. There's no reason to be like, okay, well, we weren't in this game because we were. We were in the game basically the whole time. It's just in the closing few minutes, this team was not able to close out. And that's something that's actually been a trend this year. We've seen that a lot where it's been a close game. And then in the fourth quarter, we actually lose the game. Whereas in years past, it's been the third quarter we came out and got absolutely boat raced. So who knows?
Yep, and things didn't get much better. We go from there to an even tougher matchup against the Warriors, one of the hardest teams to beat at this point in the league.
They're ridiculous.
Yep, Curry currently is going for the 3-point record as we speak, as we do this podcast. Like I said, we're a little early tonight.
Yep.
So he's out there doing that, and he came in, I think he was 16 down or something when he played against us, and he ended up with 6. So that's all it was. It was basically just Curry jacking up shots, and it ended up being, again, another close loss, 94-104. All things considered, no Dame and CJ. This was another one of those wins that's like Powell looked good again. Powell looked exactly what we've been wanting Powell to be. He's been my favorite Blazer this year, and he showed again why he's out there. But this was the little show, in my opinion. If he doesn't get hurt, I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, if he
I
doesn't get
don't
hurt
know.
in this one, it's a little bit closer, right?
He was so impactful on both ends of the floor, and that's
Mhm.
the thing. If you didn't watch this game, you may not realize is that Nasir Little was probably our best player at times defensively in this game. He looked like he could sort of flip the switch. He was getting big blocks. He was closing out on switches. He was doing everything you want Nasir Little to do. It looked like he was going to earn a starting spot, and then he just showed something that I think has been a problem for the last couple of years, and that's durability. And I hate to knock the guy for it. He's still really young. It's starting to become an issue that he can't stay on the court. And I talked about that last year.
Yeah, we're gonna get more into that in the second half of the
Yeah.
episode. I'm interested to see. I know how you kind of feel about it, but we'll dive into that a little bit. But again, this is one of those games that I just didn't. There wasn't a lot of excitement. I mean, outside of Little playing really good and Powell continuing to look good, it's just a Warriors team that is better than us, and they came out and took advantage of our injuries and beat us.
Well, and so Rocco plays 35 minutes and gives you 7 points. And it's like, I get that his role is pretty small offensively, and defensively he was fine this week. There was really not a lot to criticize. I can probably find clips if you want me to of him getting blown up, but he also played great help defense in a lot of these games. I don't know. I mean, Dennis Smith plays 42 minutes, Norman Powell plays 43, and you can't knock either one of those guys. I just don't think we have the roster to hang with these dudes. I mean, I wrote down in my notes, did you see there was a couple possessions where Jordan Poole was absolutely unstoppable? I mean, he was literally nuclear in this game, and the Blazers just don't have an on-ball defender to just stick on that guy. Like you said, Curry was jacking up shots trying to get the record, and he knew he could do it against our perimeter defense. It's just, we had really low expectations for this game. The Blazers fought hard. I don't think Chauncey has lost the locker room as far as effort goes. I just don't think that we've had the firepower to hang with these teams.
No, and the injuries don't help. Like I said, no Dame and CJ, you're losing 40 to 50 points a night easy.
Yeah.
That's a lot to make up. And as good as Powell has been, that's a lot to ask. Nurk's not going to get you 30 a night. I'm sorry, that's not what he's going to do.
Yep.
He can't
I
keep that
agree.
kind of a pace up. He did great against the Clippers, but you couldn't expect it here, especially considering the Clippers, in my opinion, don't have anybody that can really slow Nurk down. At least Green and some of these guys are able to slow Nurk down a little bit, and the offense takes him out of what he likes to do just because of how much shooting it ends up having to be. Golden State forces you to have to score fast, and Nurk, it's fine at getting those twos here and there, but it takes a little bit more than that to beat the Warriors.
It's just a mismatch. I mean, it's just not a good. In years past, the Blazers have really stacked up well against the Warriors. This season, it doesn't seem like we're well equipped for that. So Tony Snell plays 13 minutes and gets a completely zeroed out stat line. I mean,
Tony Snell's a meme at this point. I mean, this is not the first time that this has happened. People screenshotted this, I think, when he played for Chicago. I mean, it wasn't the amount of minutes, but
it was. I think with Milwaukee, he played 26 minutes and got all zeros.
That's what it was. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, at this point, the fact that we have to play Schnell at all is a problem.
It's true.
That's where we are. The guy came in. He's supposed to just shoot threes. That's it. We brought him in to shoot threes. He was like 100% last year. He only shot a couple of them, but that's why he's here. He's not doing that again. I don't know if it's a trend. I feel like it's a trend with a lot of people we bring in to do a specific thing, and then they just don't do that specific thing. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to knock Tony Schnell. What else is he supposed to do with injuries? He has to play. He's going to get some minutes.
And he's a good defender. I mean, not great, but he's a good
big
defender.
And long. I think that's what lets him be an okay defender, but he's not a good defender. He can just get his hands in front of people, and that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, what do you expect from the guy? Okay, maybe a rebound. Like, I don't know, It'd
be nice to do something. I think the Warriors' ball movement is just too much for us. I mean, our defense is getting ripped apart on communication and ball movement, and that's what the Warriors are really good at. It's just not a good matchup for us.
Yeah, no, agreed, 100%. But again, that's not one. Both that and the Clips are not games I expected to win this week, especially with the injuries. I mean, last week when we talked about it, I wouldn't expect to lose the Clippers if we had CJ. Like, I thought, you can at least compete. Like, I wouldn't say we're going to lose for sure.
Could have
once CJ's out, that's a loss. The Warriors, for sure, you're not keeping up with. I mean, they might keep it close because they kind of play down to their competition, or they tend to.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're not making it exciting. They're not upbeat and running around doing a bunch of stuff that they can do. And then once it gets close, they're able to keep a lead and pull away.
Mm-hmm.
The Wolves, on the other hand, Damien Lillard comes back, 24 points. He looked fine. I mean, I'm sure he's still bugging from the injury a little bit. It's been bugging him for a couple of years, so it's not like a couple of days is just going to magically make that go away. But this is a team you need to beat. I'm disappointed.
It was at home. Everybody but CJ played. Nasir Little was back. I mean, Simons was able to play 33 minutes.
He had 26 points. That was his season high.
I was just going to say he actually looked really good in that game. Yeah. Everybody played within their role. Now, there was an interesting change, and I want to ask you about this. So going into this game, about 3 hours before the game, we learned that Covington was going to get benched for Larry Nance, and Larry Nance was going to start. What did you think of that decision?
I'm all for trying different things out. To me, Nance is better suited for the bench. I still think he is, because I think he's a good enough passer that it's good to have a big man that can kind of run the offense if the matchups, go towards that. So I don't know if I care for him starting. He started before in some other places, and he never really did anything with his role. I just think with the bench, we can utilize him and what his skill set is a little bit better. He also gives you, in my opinion, better big man defense than what Zeller gives you. So if you do run into a matchup where there's a good bench big, Nance is kind of that guy that can play small ball center and go out there, and like he did against Toronto and like he did against, I think it was Chicago. Those games where he really was stepping up was because we had a little small ball with him, and he was able to run that backup unit and really play a lot of those minutes at the end.
Sure.
To me, starting doesn't matter anyway. I mean, it does a little bit, sets a tone throughout the game, and you're going to get a little bit more minutes than the guys typically behind you, sure. But it's who closes. And both him and Little start, but Covington closed. What do you think of that? That's the big one that came out of this. That's the big storyline.
It was really frustrating because Covington was playing good help defense, but he's just not an on-ball defender of any success. He was really getting burned a lot. Now, we did use him sometimes against Cat, and he was pretty effective, actually. You would think You would, I mean, Cat had a good game offensively. So if you look at the stats, you're like, damn, Cat was really good. But when Rocco played him up, he was strong enough to play a small ball 5 on him. The big thing is, it's just Covington offensively. Like, there's just so much that lacks there. And we were in a game where it was like going back and forth. The Wolves are young, they're hungry, they're punching us in the mouth. They want to go down there. They're moving the ball really fast in transition. And Covington just, it just doesn't fit with this team. And so, and then he launched a shot that was a really crucial shot with, I think, 30 seconds left or something like that, and missed it. And it's just like, it's not your role to be taking shots. And it wasn't like a wide open 3. It was kind of contested. It's like, this is not your role. I don't think he should be in the closing lineup. And it was really frustrating.
Yeah, you're gonna know more about this than me. I didn't get to actually catch the game. I tried to get some highlights and look at some box scores. This is during my flight to Green Bay. During the Packer game, my flight back, I kind of missed a couple things there, so I didn't get to see this. But
he played really hard. But he got 3 points in 34 minutes. Like, that's off the. I mean,
Tony Snell?
No, that was Covington.
That was
exactly. Like,
yeah.
It's literally like he's like a glorified Tony Snell at this point. And I'm not trying to diminish what he does defensively. It's just really frustrating that he's so bad offensively. The other thing is, when he's in the game, the offense does tend to sputter. And okay, here's a question. So with 28 seconds left, we're down 6 points, right? No big deal, whatever. We're down 6. Dame hits a 3 off of a beautiful like pick and pop with Nance. They're playing a really good 2-man game. We're down 3 after Dame hits one. With 28 seconds left, Minnesota gets the ball, inbounds it, and Anthony Simons intentionally fouls. Why do you intentionally foul down 3 with 28 seconds left when you know Minnesota could go down there, miss a shot, and you could have a chance to tie the game? It was a really weird decision, and I don't know if it was coaching or player.
I mean, I don't see why you would intentionally foul.
Because,
like you said, you have a chance. If you're going to have a chance to get the ball back, that you don't intentionally foul in that situation.
It was horrible.
You go down, try to force a bad shot. You run into timeouts and things like that. So I understand there's some clock management side of it. But either way, you give them 2 free throws. If they go down and hit them, you're down 5, and you go back and you have to hit another 3. You're in the same situation. At least if you can force them to miss a shot, you can. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not intentionally fouling 26 seconds in the one possession game.
They intentionally fouled D'Angelo Russell. He hits, I think, one or both, and then you just never really had another shot in that game. It was a really weird decision. I think Chauncey was in a little over his head in that situation, and it was at home. These are games the Blazers win. Like, you can't blame health in this situation. Now, Dame did go, I think he shot like 2 for 12 outside. He was really kind of rough, and he was trying to hit really deep, momentum building, game breaking threes, and it's like, dude, maybe play within your role a little bit more when you're
if he's banged up and it's hurting you and affecting you being able to do that, don't do it. He knows himself better than we're going to know him. You know what I mean? That's the thing. We talk about this injury all year. Nobody's been wanting him to sit and rest, et cetera, but he's playing. He knows what he's able to do. He knows how much pain he's going through. He understands what he's able to do out there. If he's not able to shoot these long threes, he shouldn't be doing it. Figure out a different way to beat them. Attack a little bit more. Draw some more fouls. Do something.
Yes.
That's exactly you're shooting poorly. Especially against a team like this. This is a team you should be easily getting around. Russell's not a good defender.
Yeah.
He's a great scorer. You have opportunities there, so it's disappointing. I will say that Anthony Edwards is a heck of a lot of fun to watch. That is something that I'm happy for the Wolves. I don't know what they're going to do with Cat in the future, but Edwards, and they have some other early picks and things like that they're going to be able to work with here soon. So happy for him. I think that's really sweet that
Patrick Beverly
see some of that Anthony Edwards stuff. But I don't know. I agree with you. This is another tough one because this is one that you expect to be able to win. You lose at home, and it just the trend has continued. We're not a good team right now.
Yeah, we're not. And I mean, this week was a little better defensively. I thought for the teams that you played, giving up 116 to the Wolves was kind of rough, but the other 2 teams that you played, you held them to 102 and 104 respectively, and both of those teams are pretty good offenses.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the games where Dame and CJ were both out? What?
Oh my gosh, I think you nailed it. When you're down your 2 worst defenders in every game. I mean, obviously we struggled offensively, so you can kind of flip the coin there if you want and say like, oh, well, we would have probably scored over 100 points in a couple of those games. But also, I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. played great defense this week. He's very I want to say Seth Curry, and where he's like undersized, but he can give you fits defensively. And, Simons is scrapping out there in the minutes that he's playing. Norman Powell, dude, there is never a time Norman Powell is not fighting defensively. That dude is so good, and it doesn't always show up in the stat sheet, but Norman Powell's impressive defensively.
I can tell you this much. When I was at the Clippers game watching Norman Powell play defense on Paul George struggled. As soon as they tried to switch it up and put Rocco on him, Paul George feasted. It seems like it's been a trend.
It is.
It was one of my takeaways from this last week is that Powell looks better than CJ at the shooting guard position right now. I feel like that's rough to say because not to be disrespectful to CJ, but Powell's putting up the same amount of points more often than not. His defense has been way better. He just looks like he fits at the shooting guard position. So when we get into some of these other things we're going to talk about, which all probably involve trading CJ at this point, that means you potentially move Powell down to that shooting guard position, and Portland fans should be just ecstatic as to what we've seen when he's been in that role. We haven't really got to see a lot of him doing it with Dame. The Wolves is probably the first game we really got to see that. But I still think he's a better fit for this roster, and we got to see a little bit of it this week. He looks better than what CJ's given us so far this year.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, look, Norman Powell's undersized for the 3, and I think Chauncey even alluded to it a few weeks ago. He said we're giving up size every single night, and that's really frustrating when you're playing against teams like Cleveland. And I think the Warriors don't have a ton of size, but when you're talking about Utah, they have a ton of size on their wing position, and Norman Powell's going to be overmatched. Dame and CJ are not good defenders, and okay, Norman Powell is giving you 23 to 26 a night in CJ's absence. You're telling me if we could give him an expanded role, he could probably score 22 to 25 points per night. That's basically what CJ gives you. Now, is it that really beautiful? Like CJ can break guys down one-on-one in ISO. He can really get space. He can find his shots. He can hit tough shots. Is that going to be what Norman Powell does? No, but he's going to attack the basket. He's going to hit the rim. He's going to draw fouls. It's a different game. I just think Blazer fans are so used to seeing CJ with that beautiful scoring and ISO game that it's like Norman Powell's 22 ugly points are just as good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's the perfect way to describe it. Is that it's not as pretty. Like it's a lot of drawing fouls. It's just hitting, threes that you expect anybody to hit. It's not the flashy step backs like what CJ is able to do. But the defensive side, I mean, he's not an amazing defender. Don't get me wrong. He's not a Drew Holiday out there. No. He's not a Patrick Beverly. He's not an Andre Iguodala. He's not these guys that can lock a guy down and really just take them out of a game. But he does a much better job of slowing guys down than CJ. He's bigger, so he doesn't get moved around as much. He's able to fight through screens a little bit easier. He's longer, so he's able to get hands up in guys' faces and really get down and actually, stick his hands out and slow guys down a little more than what we've been able to get from CJ. So that's one takeaway I had this week.
Good.
The next thing is the little thing. I want to talk about that. So you talked about it earlier this week. You mentioned that you were kind of, I don't want to say you're not happy with him or necessarily over him by any means, but you brought up the injury concerns. See, I'm on the side of it that I think he should be starting. It doesn't sound like you're as hot on the little thing.
Here's my thing with Nasir, right? And I've believed in Nasir for the last 3 years that he's the wing of the future. I said it last year on the pod. I said, we really got to develop him. I think we need to give him more minutes. I think we need to find a way to get him incorporated on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. I believe in him, but it's starting to become an issue where durability is a problem. And that was something with Derek Jones Jr. that we struggled with last year. It's like the guy can't stay on the damn court sometimes. And Nasir has flashes of brilliance on both ends of the court, but I just don't know if that's sustainable. And I want it to be, and I'm not trying to complain or dog the guy. It's like, I just want to see if he can stay healthy. And I do think the Blazers should keep him. I don't think we should trade him. I think he should be one of the untouchables, as much as that's weird to say. I think we should give him an extension of his contract next year, and we should work through some of this stuff. But I'm getting concerned about durability with Nasir.
I'm not as concerned as you, only because the injuries to me haven't been the kind of injuries that would normally scare me. They're not soft tissue. They're not hamstrings. And
true,
they're not knees or Achilles or back stuff tends to be a thing, especially, more so for bigger guys. Back injuries tend to linger because of what they have to do in the court. But for me, it's been, sure, the calf strain. He had the foot. I think he broke his foot last year. I can't remember exactly. Yeah. It was a foot injury. Those are weird one-off things. Now, the way that he plays, again, super athletic. He's sprinting around, jumping around, doing the dunks. You might start to see a little bit of the guys getting banged up here and there. But They haven't been the type of injuries that worry me. Like Nurk worries me a bit more. It
Sure.
worries me a bit more because that's a big guy with leg injuries. And that's a lot of weight that you're consistently running around with. He's also had some back issues.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that starts to concern me a bit more, is the
Okay.
soft stuff. But for him, he's young. He's already back. He battled it. He's coming back already.
Yeah.
He's gonna be all right. I just don't think it's an over concern considering what he gave you and all those good points that you just said. I mean, he's still going to be, to me, the ability to get to the Bridges level, right? He
Yeah.
can give you what the Crowders give you of the world. He's going to be athletic enough. He can shoot. His shooting's been great.
It's been
Offensively,
good.
when he's gotten minutes, he's put up points. And the defense and the hustle are the two
Yes.
biggest things that I think he gives that we just didn't have.
Mm.
I griped about Jones all year last year. I hated the fact that I don't care what anybody says. He did not look like he gave a lot of effort when he was out there. We see it sometimes with Rocco. That just kind of looks like, even as good of a help defender as he is, he tends to slack off at times. I don't get that from Little. Little's always out there jumping around, chasing guys down, doing something, even if it's not always efficient and helping. He's at least making an attempt to do something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. He absolutely should be one of our untouchables. And I don't
so.
think the injuries are as big of a concern to me as I think they are for you.
I get that. So
You compare them to Zach Collins.
I did compare him to Zach Collins. Well, because it's like, okay, so lower body injuries, you're starting to talk about feet, ankles, calves, like all these things. Now with Zach, it was a multitude of injuries. It was all kinds of stuff. It was shoulder. But it's just at the same time, Nasir Little reminds me of Zach in the way that he could be a ceiling elevator, but the guy, if he's not going to be out there on the floor every night, night in, night out, then that's going to be a problem. But we'll see.
I'll give you that.
I hope I'm wrong. Okay, another thing popped up this week that I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
So literally just within the last 48 hours, I read a thing on, I want to say Blazers Edge, that Nurkic and Covington are going to be available. Now, we've alluded to that for multiple pods. Now, we've talked about that these two guys might come up in trade talks. Do you think that it's going to happen, or do you think they're actually available?
Yeah, I mean, the rumor came from somebody that I've never really heard of who released the article. I think they reported on it, and kind of retagged it. But yeah, obviously. So here's the deal. Before we get into that, Cronin came out in his press conference. He's our interim GM right now. He came out and said that he's ready for this moment, all positive things. But the number one thing he said was roster. He said the roster's not there. It's not good. It's not what it needs to be. What? No, what? That's a shock to us on this podcast. We've never actually thought that the roster was ever an issue, right? We've never,
we just blamed Stotts.
Yeah, we were definitely the YouTube channel that was all for the roster. But no, absolutely not. We talked about this roster not being it for a while. He came out and he essentially basically said, like, yeah, we got to do a lot of things to fix this, to right this ship. I don't expect him to be the one to build a relationship with Dame. I'm sure he has one in here for a little bit, but it's the new GM's job to really get Dame to stick here when that moment happens, when we hire one, or whether or not he gets fully hired, whatever. Either way, he's the guy that's in charge right now. Deadline's going to be here faster than you know it, only a couple months away. This stuff is already rolling. Things are already spinning. Ben Simmons rumors are flying around. Russell Westbrook is up for trade now, which could affect the Ben Simmons market, so I've heard. So, yeah, absolutely, this stuff starts coming up. And, of course, that spurs all these rumors, right? Now everybody's available. Oh, no, the roster probably should be. But absolutely, Nurk and Rocco are the top two outside of the grand CJ trade, but they're the top two most likely to be moved at this point because of their expiring contracts.
I think so too. I also think that, I thought Nurkic's effort the last week is something that should be called out. He was really good in a lot of these games, even probably too aggressive at times, but I'm not going to knock him for that. I don't really care if the guy gets into foul trouble if it means that we're in a close game. I'd love to see him pull back a little bit, and there's times where offensively he gets really ticky-tacky fouls, and it's whatever. But I think Nurkic's energy has been really good, and I think defensively he's bought in. He's been giving you everything you want to see on the defensive end. Would I mind him being moved? No, not at all, because I don't think that his rim protection is that great. I don't think he's been fantastic on the defensive end after the initial hedge and rotation. I think his conditioning, he's a big guy, and I'd like to see the Blazers play small more. Look, Draymond Green is not 7 feet 285 pounds. He's more of that like 6'8", 6'9" switchable guy. I want the Blazers to play Nance more for defensive purposes. I think that's going to be the best version of this team, but you can't do that when you already have Dame and CJ out there because you're already so limited for size. So what I want to see is I want to see a move where Nurkic goes out and we bring in a more of a small ball center and we play better defense from 2 through 5. Regardless, I'm not saying we have to trade Nurk. I don't think he's like the pivotal move, but Covington has to go because that guy has not given us anything. I mean, like I talked about, 34 minutes, 3 points. It's like, it's just not enough. And I'm sorry, it's time to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I won't compare Nurk to Draymond because Draymond plays power forward for the Warriors. They put out a center out there with him.
They play Looney.
That's a little bit different of a situation. To me, Nurk he's expendable because I feel like there's so many centers that can do what Nurk does. I mean, maybe not what Nurk does. He's in that second tier of centers for sure. Mm-hmm. But you can get a guy to come in and be able to give you good minutes at center. They're a little easier to find, maybe not to the level of Nurk, but good enough to run with depending on what you get back in the potential trade. Mm-hmm. I would still rather keep Nurk if the price is right. And that's the biggest thing. Dame's contract isn't getting any smaller, folks. It's going up every year. We're still climbing the mountain to his peak here. It goes up a lot. So for Nurk, he's going to have to agree to come back at a reasonable rate at this point. He's making about 14 mil right now. He needs to hover around the 12 mil mark for me to really want to bring him back. He's going to have to probably take a small pay cut because you're going to have to counter out Dame's contract. If he wants to stay in Portland and he's happy playing with Dame, he's going to have to give us a home court discount. Centers generally don't get a huge market value anyway, unless Anthony Davis were to hit the market or Embiid, sure. Right. But most of the time, they don't typically draw it in. He's not the guy, typically, especially with his injury history, that I'm worried about drawing big money. So to me, I'd rather hold Nurk, try to get him back at the end of the year at a decent deal than trade him. For now, I expect him to be in talks because you're going to have to make money work. If you don't move CJ, him and Rocco together about 26 mil or so, that's kind of where you're going to be looking if you're going to get anything of value that's going to actually help this team, if anybody's available in that price range. So do I think he'll get moved? Yes. Do I want him to get moved? Not necessarily.
I just don't think Larry has stepped up enough to really make Nurk expendable. And now you're talking about, and we haven't even talked about Cody Zeller's injury because Cody Zeller's basically irrelevant for this team in his 9 minutes he was playing. But, Cody Zeller's now injured, so you'd need to acquire a big back in a trade because you have no bigs on this team left for the foreseeable future.
If you move Nurk, exactly. And that's what it comes up to be. So
it's starting to be a problem.
Leaving that aside, Rocco, 100%. Rocco's contract is expiring. You're not going to bring him back. I can tell you right now, they will not re-sign him. It's not going to happen. Little's been playing too good, and you can go out and find another guy that can give you similar to what Rocco's doing. I don't know if this is getting a little older. The 3-and-D guys are great. They're valuable, but you can find them. You can go get a Trevor Ariza in a trade like they did last year and come in and give you essentially what Rocco's given us right now, which is not a lot. Offensively, it's not helping, and his defense has been lackluster. We've called it out a couple times. Go watch some of the highlights in that Clippers game, and you'll watch guys literally just run right past him to the rim. He's just not what we wanted him to be. Maybe that's unfair to him that we gave him such lofty expectations.
Probably.
But at the same time, he's made himself expendable. He's now been benched. Chauncey does not like him. If you don't think that him being benched is a direct result of Chauncey's effort comments that he's been making after games, and you don't think that's directly associating itself with Rocco, then you need to follow us a little bit more so we can enlighten you. I said the same thing about Derrick Jones last year. Nobody listened to me. Guess who got benched? Say with thoughts all you want. The guy didn't even play at the end of the season. There's certain players that you can just see and know that coaches don't like based on the comments and the actions, and Rocco's one of them. He will not be here at the trade deadline, 100%. Whether or not he's packaged with a CJ or a Nurkic or a Anthony Simons or all those different names that could be out there, I don't know. But you gave up 2 first-round picks to get the guy. It kind of sucks that it's basically a one-and-done type of deal here. Year and a half, I guess, but still, you gave up a lot of assets to bring him in, and he hasn't panned out. You got to move him now while you can get something back. Otherwise, he's just going to walk. You're not going to bring him back, and you get nothing for your 2 first-round picks except a playoff loss in the first round of Denver and whatever you want to get from him this year.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, he's not great at defending the Paul Georges, and he's also not great at defending the small guards. We need an on-ball defender. Like I think you alluded to Mikal Bridges earlier, not that those guys grow on trees, but you go get somebody like Tybal. I mean, Matisse Tybal would help this team a ton. We need somebody like that. It's just we need someone that's going to be an on-ball defender, and Ben Simmons or whoever is going to be available. I think we should tackle some of those because there was a really weird rumor this week
Couple of them.
that I think you're going to be in love with. What do you make of Jeremy Grant?
I make it that he's hurt now, and that really upsets me. My fantasy team's hitting a little bit from that. I'm a big Jeremy Grant fan, though. Being there to watch him live when I got to see Detroit, I got to see a lot of what he can do. Now, sure, he kind of stands in the corner at times and will just shoot threes. But when he decides to attack, he can attack. And that's what Rocco doesn't give us. That's what we don't get from our forwards. And I mean, little can. I mean, he's more of a transition dunker. He doesn't just attack off ball or on ball necessarily. Really doesn't attack unless it's a transition situation or he gets a good look. But Grant will attack, and he can score in so many different ways. The guy can give you 20 plus a night. And his defense, if anybody saw the Detroit game, didn't you know exactly what I'm talking about? But what he did when he went up and blocked that shot that's what we need. He's quicker, he's younger, he's more athletic than what Rocco is. He can score better. I just want it. I want it so bad. I've been wanting Jeremy Grant for a while now. Detroit is in a weird flux of a team right now. They always seem to be rebuilding. They just paid him a bunch of money, and we're already talking about moving him again and potentially rebuilding. They just started rebuilding, and now they're breaking the house down again. I don't know. The only thing I fear with Jeremy Grant is that when he was in Denver, he had a bit of a diminished role. He wasn't able to do a lot on the offensive end because they had Jokic, and so I fear that he wouldn't get enough touches here to keep him happy. But if you're telling me you could acquire him, that is the move we need to make. You need to make a swing. But he would get touches here if you trade CJ for him, right? If that's the move that you make for CJ now.
Good point.
People are going to be all over that. But if CJ is gone, Powell's going to eat up some of those points, but you're going to have plenty of opportunities for Grant to come in and play. And I think Grant can play small forward for us instead of power forward, which opens the door for Little and Nance to kind of play that power forward role. And
I'm down.
You're not worried about them getting touches at this point. I don't think the role changes from Rocco to him, what you're going to ask him to do, and you're going to get a much, much, much better version of that.
So if that's the case. I just don't know how you talk Detroit into making that move, but we'll see how that works. So he's available.
And the other thing is, they like some of their guards. They have Killian Hayes. They just obviously got Cunningham, first overall pick. He's a point guard. Good. So for CJ to fit in there, that's one of those weird things where they have guards that aren't terrible. They don't necessarily need guards. They probably need some big guy depth, for being honest. So I don't know. Maybe you can talk him into taking Nurk and Rocco, get back Grant. Maybe they just say, we'll clear out some books here. We'll get rid of Grant's contract. We lose exactly. You get some money back, and maybe you go out and try to make a different move. But I don't see why they would. I mean, if I'm just in love with Grant, I don't see why they wouldn't be. But you're right. The rumors are out there spinning right now. He was a name that came up. I don't put any stock into that particular one because I think Detroit, he's young enough, and they don't really have a lot of money into anybody else that they wouldn't want to move off of him.
Yeah, I get that. Did you hear the other rumor?
That's not the big trade rumor, right? That's not the big one that came up. The one that really brought some big stock into everybody's stew here.
It's not?
Both Sabonis and Turner have been just spinning around like a hamster on a wheel, just nonstop. So basically Indy came out and said, hey, we're ready to get rid of LeVert and either Sabonis or Turner at this point. Different discussions being made. So they're going full rebuild. They probably don't bring back Brogdon. They have money into TJ Warner. You remember him, if you know.
TJ Warren, yeah.
Warren. Did I say Warner?
Yep. He's been really good, but he's been hurt the last since the bubble.
He was a bubble machine. He was like a bubble hero. He was out there like Booker. Everybody's like, wow, he's just crazy good. And then got hurt, never came back.
Yep.
But they are willing to move one of these two bigs and potentially LeVert. And I don't think LeVert's coming back to us. I mean, I'm fine with if you were able to pull that off. Sure, you don't need him. He's another Norman Powell to me. A little bit better mid-range guy, but potentially getting Turner or Sabonis back, which would probably not even require CJ at this point. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That's the kind of move that you start thinking, okay, Nurkic and Rocco go to them. They get off of those contracts, and they can build around, some money, and they have some stuff to do. Which one of those two would you want back?
Yeah, so I think Sabonis is a 2-time All-Star, so I do think they'll be looking for a decent return on him. Like if they're going to pitch him, they should take a lot.
Probably.
Turner, I think, is more miscast on that team, and I think we could use Turner. So Turner's really obviously an athletic big man, great rim protector, one of the best shot blockers in the league, and he's a really good spacer too. He can shoot really well, and that's something that they have not been able to utilize a lot on that team because they don't have amazing guards that can draw and kick into the paint. And the other thing that they can't do is Sabonis operates as a hub a lot of time, a la kind of like Jokic from the elbow. And it's like that spacing with the two of them just doesn't really synergize well. So if you could pair Turner with Dame, that would be unreal. I like Sabonis better offensively. I think he can do more. He's more versatile offensively, but defensively, he's not going to help at all. And what this team needs is a really athletic rim rolling big man. And that's something that Turner, I think, can do and can develop. I mean, I think Turner would be the right fit for this team, and I don't think he'd be that costly for us, like you just said. I think if you were to pitch a pick and Nurk and maybe Rocco, I don't know exactly what the trade would look like because Indiana's in a weird state where they're kind of rebuilding but kind of not. I just think a few assets and you could make that happen.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because as a guy who's owned Turner in fantasy basketball for 2 years straight, I can tell you that the inconsistencies are frustrating. Yes, he's a great defender, especially statistically. I mean, he's a good defender anyway, but he's a block guy. He gets numbers. He's been a block leader in the league the last couple of years.
Yes.
But so did Whiteside. I mean, Whiteside was a statistical monster when it came to the defensive side. Now, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying when you look at the eyeball test, you start looking at his stats and, oh, he averages 2.8 blocks a game. Great. So did Whiteside. And we saw that work. To me, the threes are rough. I don't like the fact that he shoots so many threes. I don't mind stretching the floor necessarily. But at the same time, I feel like he gets in a habit of doing that a bit too much. We have plenty of three-point shooting. If you make that kind of a trade, you're probably not getting rid of CJ. And you have CJ, Powell, and Dame. And if you try to add your center out there shooting threes, that's not ideal for us. Now, the athleticism, I agree. I like that. I like the fact that he can attack the rim. I like the fact that you can use that. But to be fair, that's kind of how we've been using Nurk. Nurk's still getting plenty of looks at the rim. I don't think paint scoring from the big is a big thing. Now, he's way more athletic, so he adds another dynamic element to that. He's a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
He's longer, so he has the ability to go up and get lobs and all that good stuff a little more than Nurk can give. And I think his speed and athleticism allows him to recover from the defensive standpoint. But to me, Sabonis is still, if you can get Sabonis, you go for Sabonis for him. Don't forget, I'm putting this out there to the universe. Do not forget, Sabonis did win the skills challenge. So I saw him shoot threes in the All-Star game. He can shoot threes. All right. He won. He beat guards. So
I'm with you. Like, Sabonis is the dream. I would rather have Sabonis if you're telling me I could have him for the exact same price. If you walk in the store and they have the same price tag. But I just think Sabonis is going to command more. I think that a team is going to see him as a potential build around for the future. You know, a la Jeremy Grant. You saw Jeremy Grant when he took a more of an offensive role on a new team. Him, Julius Randle is another one that's like this. We can build around this dude if we get the right core. So I just think Miles Turner is more of like that miscast piece, like you're talking about Hassan Whiteside. If Whiteside would have blossomed a little bit more in Portland, I think we could have maybe moved on from Nurk and kept him, but he's just really limited. I think Miles Turner is better for Chauncey's system, though. I think you called that out really perfectly. Look, he can hedge and recover a lot better than Nurkic can, and a lot better than most of the centers in this league. He's really athletic. So I'm torn, but I would say Miles Turner would help us more right now, which is what we need.
Agreed. I think it just gives you different things. I think Sabonis can give you more of the throw it down to the post and let him operate. You slow things down a bit and you can do different things offensively. It gives you a bit more matchups that you can win. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like he can shoot over guys, he can back guys down. He can give you 20 a night like it's nothing, like what LaMarcus used to do. I think he's a great passer. He's a very underrated assist guy. He gets, he nears triple doubles all the time. We saw that again. I like to bring up the skills challenge, but we saw it. He's able to make good passes. That's another thing that you're not getting from Turner. You lose that if you get rid of Nurkic. Nurkic is a pretty good passing big man. So that limits you there. So as much fun as Turner shooting threes and running to the rim and dunking on people and all that good stuff, Sabonis offensively keeps things a bit more calming, whereas more consistent, whereas Turner is going to give you much better defense. But agreed, I don't think you trade CJ for Sabonis. That's where it's hard for me to buy into that. Now, that's probably what it would cost. I don't think they move Sabonis, a two-time All-Star who's, playing really good, unless you get something back that's similar. And CJ's probably the thing that you get back that makes that work. He can slide to point guard there with Brogdon running to shooting guard, and they have, or vice versa, if they really wanted to. Either way, they have exactly what Portland needs, and it would be a good defensive guard with a good offensive guard. So it kind of makes, I don't know. I'm torn between it. Like if CJ comes up for Sabonis, I mean, do you not make that move? Are you really against CJ for Sabonis? I kind of am, but I'm also kind of not.
No, I wouldn't be against that move. I don't think Indiana wants to just take him out, right? I think it'd have to be a 3-teamer where it
Something
just gets
bigger.
really interesting. They said Ben Simmons 3-teamer was heating up this week. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I saw that. That's not gonna stop for a while. I don't know. So okay. The thing with Ben Simmons, everybody wants the CJ for Simmons thing so badly that every little dinky rumor that comes out is going to get overblown. Now, it came from a good source, obviously. I'm pretty sure it was a wash bomb.
It was.
So obviously you trust that, and I'm sure teams have been talking about it. It's not just going to be some new thing. I mean, Simmons has been on the trade table for a while now. I think when they say heating up, I'm assuming that means Philly's starting to lower their request. That's what I take away from that. That means they're starting to listen to the not James Hardens of the world, the not Damien Lillards of the world, we talked to them. We had a conversation with Philly. They asked for Dame. We said absolutely not. So it comes down to whether or not they're willing to take CJ. I heard a counteroffer was made with what's his face, the other forward for Philly.
Oh, Tobias Harris?
I don't know why. Tobias.
I heard Tobias Harris, and I heard the Blazers are not interested in him at all.
Well, why would we want him? Probably not for CJ.
Taller CJ.
This is the bigger CJ. So that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, you got to think that Portland's involved in a lot of trades right now. The GM knows. He came out and said that he's going to be making moves. Yeah. I don't think it's a secret now that this roster needs a shakeup. You run the risk of losing Dame. I don't care what he says. I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'll respect that. But if this team doesn't make playoffs, people need to start. It's going to start getting a little rough if you don't start making certain moves. And this is the best chance you're going to have to make some moves. It's got to happen. So Ben Simmons obviously is the number one target probably for most people. Dame came out and said he wanted to play with him. Ben Simmons liked his Instagram post or tweet or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember exactly what it was. Dame said he wanted to play with him and he liked it. So things are heating up there. I think in the next couple of weeks, I still personally don't think that CJ gets moved before the deadline. I just think it's a lot for an interim GM to make that decision. I think that Rocco and the Nurkic's are going to be the most likely guys that get traded based on his comments. But if they come saying, hey, Ben Simmons for CJ, let's make this happen. We've waited long enough. I mean, yeah, you drop the hammer. I think Philly's still asking for too much. That's why I think 3 teams are getting involved now. So I've heard Pascal Siakam's name come up. Now maybe we get him. Simmons goes to Toronto. They get so it may not end up being him if it is a 3-way deal like we're starting to hear. You got to think Indiana's starting to get involved in that. Maybe they're starting to look at Toronto like, hey, your big suck. Here, we got Miles Turner and Sabonis. Let's talk. Let's make a deal with somebody else. Yeah. So there are things that are coming into play now.
Sure.
Do you think Portland is going to make a move in that 3-team deal? Do you think we're involved as they seem to think we are?
I think that Portland has to make some kind of deal, but I agree with you. It's not going to be CJ. I've heard a lot of things around the Kings, the Timberwolves, things like that. These teams that want to get a lot better. I agree with you about Dame too. I think that people don't realize that he is like one really bad Blazer season away from demanding out because he has the kind of clout where he could say, hey, I want out and I want to go to LA or whatever. He has that Anthony Davis level connection with these stars. So I do think that you have to be aggressive right now. Like we need to be making moves. Now, I'm not saying that you need to sell CJ for Tobias Harris because I do believe that that's a beyond lateral move. That's not a good move for the Blazers. But I do think that Cronin needs to be making calls and being aggressive and trying to do things. So I think that things will happen, but I don't think it's going to be CJ. I think it's going to be Nurkic. I think you're going to see Covington move for sure. I've heard Larry Nance Jr.'s name is coming up, which I don't think we should trade Larry. I think we should hold on to him and Little.
A lot of interest in him right now.
And Norman Powell should be an absolute hold. Do not trade Norman Powell. That would be ridiculous. That guy
just gave him a big contract. You don't move on from him anyway.
So that's what I got. That's all I got there. I just want to hit some of those rumors with you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So I have one last little topic that I want to bring up with you before I get into there's 2 topics that I have left, but they're relatively quick.
That's cool.
This one is the Billups comments. You've already touched on it a little bit. What do you make of him coming out and, again, talking about player effort, talking about how we're not giving 100% right now, that we're looking like we're stagnant. I don't have any specific quotes. I'll be honest. I didn't write them down.
Yeah.
I'm sure you might have some of those. And if not, either way, the talk is there at this point. The locker room is there's some things with players in him right now. There's a respect issue with him right now. There's a lot of stuff that's floating around out there. We talked about a guy with no experience coming in and trying to run a veteran roster. I think we might be one of the only people that really called out what can happen if you get away from Stotts, who's been so consistent. You know, he may not have been the ideal coach for making adjustments and things, but he was consistent. And now all of a sudden you have no experience, and things are starting to get a little tumultuous.
Tumultuous?
Tumultuous?
Yeah, tumultuous.
All
So
right, sure.
last year when we fired Stotts, we said you have to right.
Hey, I don't know if you can hear this, but you're cutting out quite a bit, bud. So what he's trying to say is we talked about Stotts last year, you know, and what can happen if you let him go, and what's going to happen to the team. So now we're on the other side of that. Now we're at this point where Billups is starting to potentially lose the roster. Now, it's not necessarily his fault, right? He's had a lot of injuries so far. He hasn't got to play with the full allotment of guys, but even when he has had them, it hasn't looked great. I mean, there's been an issue with defense all year. Now, Roko's been a problem, and he got benched for it. Zeller doesn't give you basically anything. You're having to play Tony Schnell. So there's problems with the roster all over the place anyway, but I don't know how much of that is actually his fault. That's what he's trying to say. I don't know. Are you back, bud? Because you were cutting out quite a bit.
Can you hear me now?
You're a little robotic, like you're talking through a fan. Your picture's not moving at all, but yes.
Okay, so real quick, I'll just summarize it as this. Look, we talked about that things could get worse, and that's still a possibility. I just think that, look, Chauncey's trying to do things that are very Pop-esque. He's trying to call out this team in a way that's like a veteran coach who's had the team for 10 years would call them out. And that's really risky because you can alienate players doing that. I think that he's done that. The media is afraid to call that out. I think a lot of the Blazers beat writers can't say this kind of stuff. They're not fans like us. They can't say, look, I think Chauncey's losing people in the locker room and losing effort on the defensive end. Stotts was never a good defensive coach, but at least he got good offense out of this team, and they were bought in. That's something that Chauncey hasn't had lately.
Right.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, 100%. We're going to touch more on the Billups thing next week, I think, once we kind of get into that a little bit. But, yeah, so far, I mean, he's not happy. The roster changes are already happening. Nance and Little starting. I mean, part of that's part of injuries, too, for sure. But Nance getting to start over Rocco is a big deal, and that's something we're going to have to continue to watch, because that to me is a direct call out of Rocco. That's calling out his play. You benched him. I mean, that's what it is. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. He's made some questionable decisions. You already talked about some of them. We brought up the fact that he decided to put Rocco in to finish the game instead of Nance and Little. Good grief.
Yeah.
Which was probably not a good call. They're at this point, just like Toronto and Chicago, both of them are playing much better and should be playing those big minutes. So that is what it is. One more thing that I want to bring up with you. It's really quick, and it's not necessarily Blazer specific.
Okay.
But before I do that, to lead into that, it's our favorite segment. I know you've been waiting for it. You thought you were going to lag out on the internet with me with your Legrand.com connection over here, not going to put up the fan favorite segment, blazing new trails, ex-player of the week. What do we got, buddy? We got Wesley Matthews.
Oh,
Archer himself, love it. Good old Wes. We lost him in the offseason. What a terrible thing after the injury to his Achilles. He's still out here. That's what we're going to say. He actually just got re-signed by the Milwaukee Bucks last week. He's currently playing on another championship caliber team. The guy's doing everything he can to get a ring. Milwaukee, the Lakers. He's out there. He's doing his darndest. So he is my player of the week because he was re-signed by the Bucks, and he just got put on the COVID list. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
yes,
no.
COVID is back. It is sweeping the NBA. This is my last thing to talk about with you. Are you concerned at all about the season being shut down again temporarily, at least for a few weeks? Because Chicago's they're done. They're not playing for a while. Now Milwaukee, I heard earlier today that Giannis he's got the cove. He's got the vid. He's not playing. That's obviously spreading. So now Milwaukee's down. I think Brooklyn only has like 9 active players or 8 active players going into their game. So it's bad. The vid is spreading to the NBA like a wildfire right now. I don't know if these guys just aren't getting vaxxed or if they are vaxxed. I'm not going to get into that discussion. I don't know what it is. I just know that
It's
there's a COVID rampaging. The Omicron transformer over here. We got no Optimus Prime to be able to come in here and stop the Omicron. So, are you concerned about the season at all at this point? It's not looking great.
Yeah, so I listened to Zach Lowe's podcast on Monday, and he had Windhorst on, and they talked about the NBA does not want to do a shutdown this year. They're doing everything they can to not even postpone games, but they're basically saying no matter what happens, the season is not going to shut down. I think everything's going to be fine. I think it'll smooth out in about. They said that this is going to probably run through the new year as people are like going home, visiting their family, going to the holidays. I think it'll run through about mid-January. You'll see some delays, but I don't think you'll see. I think you'll see postponements, but you're not going to see cancellation.
Okay, just
That's
curious.
my thoughts.
I hope you're right. I just heard
Me
rumors
too.
now. The Bulls thing I think was the biggest thing because they're basically postponing their games at this point. So you're gonna have to start looking into rescheduling and doing all that. And it just seems like now that with the Bucks and the Nets and then one team after another is coming out with outbreaks and it's not looking ideal. So just a little concerning there. But Wesley Matthews, he's the player of the week. He has the vid. Well, he's under restrictions at least. So he's welcome back to the Bucks. Hey, I'm glad you're here for a week. Thanks for getting sick on us. That's what Giannis is saying right now. But that's all I got. That's all I got for this week. It's been a lot to go over. Like I said, we're a little late this week because of the Packers. By the way, super cool. If you ever get a chance to go to Green Bay, if you're just a fan of the NFL, highly recommend it. Titletown is awesome. The people are the darndest nicest people I ever did meet. Second highest scoring between the Bears and Packers in their 100+ year rivalry. So that was really neat to see. I don't know if you guys got to catch the game, but one big play after another. Fun, exciting stuff. So I'm not mad that I didn't get to do the podcast on Sunday. Screw you guys. It was fun. Sorry. But we are back on our normal schedule. We're thinking this Sunday upcoming, we may end up having a guest.
Yeah, maybe.
Blazers. They're out of Spain. We've been talking to them. We may make something work. Nothing official set up yet. But we might have some guests on next week, another podcaster. So that'll be pretty cool. Get to hear the scope of the Blazers internationally as they are out of Spain. Maybe if you want to figure that out and see if we're going to end up doing it and touch base with what's going on around the world with the Blazers. Yeah, the world. Then Rip City Real Talk is your place. Follow. It's over. It's over there.
Yep.
That way. Yeah. Subscribe. I tried the point. It was terrible. So subscribe. Follow us on the Tweeters, the Instagrams, and all that good stuff. To our audio only version people of this who listen on the Googles and the Spotifys and all that. We appreciate it. I know that sometimes on YouTube it gets a little tricky. We do kind of both as we post the video pod and the audio. So appreciate you guys all supporting us. Keep it up with the likes and the follows and all that good stuff. We're going to continue to get guests on. That's about it, bud. I'm out.
Just like that, we appreciate all the support, and we are out.